Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Welcome back. It is Security Happy Hour here on CyberWarriorStudios, and we have with us today the one and only Andrew and Eric Bellardo, my partner in crime, and as always, the comedic relief for this show. So, this way, that way, this way, that way.
Just trying to figure it
out. So, today we are giving away 1 month of Try Hack Me courtesy of Cyber Supply Drop. So to get that started, we are going to use the hashtag IAM. Why? Because Andrew is here to talk about identity and access management. So IAM is the key phrase for today to get into the 1 month Try Hack Me drop. Now, saying that, Andrew, as you are our sole guest today, give us a little rundown on how you got into IAM, and from there we'll kind of talk about a little bit more about what IAM is and what it takes to really succeed in it.
Absolutely, yeah. So thank you so much for for allowing me to be on the show. I'm so excited. I've watched it for a while, so I'm honored to be here. So thank you so much. With that, I brought a beer with me to join with you guys. So yeah, why not? So I got an IAM by accident, pure accident. I used to do, so I was a tester at the beginning of my career, and then I became like a business analyst doing more financial software work for the federal government. I was a contractor because I live in the DC metropolitan area. So a lot of us here are govies or government contractors. I took a position where they're like, hey, we need a good BA. It was for a government agency, and they're doing something called SailPoint, which is a identity governance and administration application. They're like, hey, here's SailPoint, go learn it. I'm like, what? How do I learn that? And the guy was like, here's some YouTube videos. That wasn't a lot. And then some like user manuals, right? So I just went knee deep and learned, and I have never done cybersecurity in my life, right? So, I've always grew up with computers. I built my computers as a kid. I loved, that. I had my dad bought a Commodore Amiga when I was a kid. So that's how old I am. And then I used to play that and learn how that was. I remember the 12 disc to take in and out, playing like Dungeons and Dragons or whatever. Yeah, that sucked. But it worked. But yeah, I went to that, learned it. It wasn't really until I left that position, I did a position, same thing, SailPoint for a bank. And I met these guys who taught me everything I am. Why are we asking these questions? What is identity? How do I, prove who I am? What do I use to prove who I am? And then the governance part, right? What's the request, the access, all that. And I thought it was just so cool. Like, it was something I just never thought about in my life. And I got more and more deep learning about it, reading some books. There wasn't a lot of books about it at the time either. And this is about, I want to say like 2011, 2012. Wasn't much about IAM in terms of like books, right? Or resources. And just really started seeing the results from it. And then from that point on, man, I've just been hitting IAM projects, really learning the craft, going to conferences and learn. And here I am today, talking more about IAM with you guys.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the things you talked about, and it's been real big on Twitter as of late, and a lot of other places, but mostly Twitter, is the need to know programming or all these concepts and networking and all that other stuff. And for a lot of cybersecurity, I'd say that's true. Not necessarily programming per se, unless you want to get into automation and making your job easier. But understanding network system administration and knowing the ins and outs of that type of stuff can really help you and make your job easier. But for identity and access management, it's not as in depth. There's more concepts that you would need to understand, but not so much knowing how to do things, if I'm not mistaken. So talk a little bit about that on what you would, from a technical aspect of cybersecurity, what you would need to know to do IAM versus, what other jobs may have to do.
Right. So, and, IAM from a technical standpoint, a lot of times it's more understanding like the applications that customers would use, right? So for example, Active Directory, right? How does that work, right? But you don't be technical to really understand the gist of Active Directory, like groups and user groups and permissions. That's one way. If you're a developer, so if you're somebody who's coding, like, so you're going to the system and you're coding a workflow, right? That's where you might learn how to like write in Java, for example, right? Or like Java Beans is a part of Java. That's really, you know, from what I know, is from a technical perspective, that's what it is, right? There are some parts like authentication of how you want to authenticate yourself. That might be another way of where you might have to go, okay, how do handshakes work, right? Or if I go in and I use like an API, for example, right? How can I write the code or talk like to my developer if you want to go to in that development route to be like, okay, how does that work, right? How do I use like Postman, for example, to understand all that JSON code, right? But that's minimal because just like you said, a lot of what I do is asking process questions and using best practices and frameworks to help our customers use best practices in terms of, you know, meeting the right criteria of really how to authenticate ourselves. Two-factor authentication is one. And then the biggest one is authorization, right? Is how much access do I give somebody? Nothing technical there. You just want to make sure you give them right access based on job title, job criteria, maybe a particular attribute, time of day, policies, and rules. Those are really much it. I mean, there's a little bit more, but you know, I'm talking high level. But if from a technical side, maybe just again the web auth stuff, web authentication. How does that work? What's FIDO? All these different, you know, minor things that it's good to know, you know, but you don't have to always know it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And again, it's one of those things because when I think of cybersecurity, my first instinct is not necessarily IAM or even GRC, even though I love those two fields. Um, that's always not becoming up technical. It's always been the technical side of things. So your SIMs, your EDR, your pen testing, your exploit development, reverse engineering malware. So it always has been very technical for me. And so anytime somebody's asked me questions, it's always been, well, do you know networking? Do you know how an operating system works? And I'm not talking like kernel boot level stuff. I'm just talking the overall. Do you know how Windows talks to, you know, this program and this program via processes and memory and stuff, or Linux and things like that. But from a security perspective, what I think we get away from is that governance, risk compliance, IAM, the overarching policies that you don't have to be technical. And to me, there's still cyber. It's still considered cybersecurity. It's still securing the infrastructure. It's still securing the data. And so, I think we put too much on the technical without realizing there's a lot of policy. There's a lot of procedure and guidance and, you know, regulation that goes out to it that we have to consider. And people that do IAM and GRC and things of that nature are just as important as every other job. And I think we try to discount them when without you guys, no company out there would implement anything. Let's be honest. Unless they were forced
Yeah.
to, they wouldn't do it.
Right. No, absolutely. And I think what people like just forget from time to time is, you know, your pen testing, your ethical hacking. What's the common thing that people use to get in? Somehow a compromised identity, right? Phishing attack, whatever, something to get me inside of the actual system itself, right? Most likely it's either a reused password that is at a administrative level common, right? That happens all. To be honest with you, most of the time that's what it is. Of course, you have your we didn't patch our firewall, you know, but a lot of times it's I'm gonna have some kind of, get a phishing attack, get access to an account, or do whale phishing, which is, you know, or spear phishing, where I go over like a CEO. Those are the most easy people to get to because they like give me everything. I'm like, why? It's just really funny. But use those accounts and then send off emails to people saying, impersonating that individual and saying, boom, hey, you know what? Hey, Sandy, you know what? I forgot that invoice. Can you sign for me? Here's a PDF. You download it, you're in, right? And then people with that access can go to town on essentially everything in your system because you give people too much access, right? And I think that's what people miss is that whole point is it's like you know, I was on a podcast recently, Identity at the Center, and that's really what it is everything is around the center, right? It's built off of identity. Once you get access to that, if you're a company that gives people everything, you're screwed, right? You know?
Yeah, and that's a big thing is you talked about it. CEOs, COOs, CISOs, you're a lot of your board. Again, it's not all companies. It truly
Mhm.
isn't, but there are still a lot of those organizations out there where they feel like, well, I'm the man in charge. Give me the access to do whatever the hell I want. So
Right.
you'll see a lot of those CEOs and things like that be the first ones targeted because of that fact, because they feel like a
Yeah.
lot of your attackers may feel like that's who to go for.
And one of the things is that happens a lot with the smaller company.
Mhm.
Once you get to a certain level, the CISOs, the board, the C level, the C suite, they know that at that level they only have access to what they need, because they get trained to say, listen, this is what could happen. And a point that you guys were making is, when we're talking about cybersecurity, we're talking about, everybody talks about the red team, everybody talks about the blue team, everybody talks about data privacy and all of that. But the central focus, what is the front door to every system, is their user authentication methodology. So, and red team, what does red team do? One of the first things that happen is you're trying to breach the front door. Passwords, password spraying, you know, all these different attack methods. And then on the blue side, as a SOC person, you're looking at authentication events, okay? Escalations of privilege. Okay, so IAM forms a very central hub in the security of our system.
Yep, Eric, you're spot on that one. And we play a role in all that, right? Like for red team, right? Obviously, they want to look at what are some easy passwords, right? Because people are cybersecurity. I'll tell you right now, people. I'm looking right at the camera right now. Is people, we are the worst when it comes to cybersecurity. Okay, and I am passwords. Can I reuse my password? Can I just put a 1 behind it? No, and I think that's where part of my job, right, is say, hey, what's your password policy, right? How can we make it a little more stronger, but not too much where it's like it's too complicated, right? Where they don't want to do it, right? Because people will find workarounds. You'd be surprised how people can find workarounds to some complex password policies. Like for example, a lot of times when you MFA to something, what if I reset my password, right? A lot of companies, even the strongest ones, security questions are the easy common thing to ask for, right? And then you get a code to your email, right? And then if your email is compromised, you're screwed, right? So that's what IAM is also part of it, is helping build that understanding, right? Of, hey, look, here's some ways that you can get attacked, right? Some attack vectors. And here's the best way for us to lower the risk. You're never going to solve everything, but if you can somehow lower that risk and give like the blue team or SOX team a heightened level of, yes, we can kind of meet that criteria or be a little more stronger before we do get breached, because it's going to happen, right? I think one of the questions was like zero trust. Zero trust, one of the big things is assume you're breached, right? All the time. So I think that's where
and that's
once you understand that, yeah. Yep.
What is some information about zero trust that's important to discuss, especially in terms of IAM, because zero trust is very, very much one of the talking points these days in securing your networks, along with IAM and everything else that goes along with it. So where can IAM and zero trust kind of play a role into how we navigate security within organizations?
So in IAM, one of our biggest things is the authorization part, right? Or what can I do? Like once I get in, what can I do, right? So let's talk about the first part, getting in the keys of kingdom. So a lot of times, a lot of people, right, or companies today, they think, oh, SSO is the way to go, right? And then once you're in, the whole world's yours. A lot of the zero trust people, we talk about, the moat around the castle. And once you're in the castle, all the doors are open, right? In zero trust, you say, sure, authenticate yourself, great. But I'm only going to give you access to certain things at certain times, right? Because you're assuming you're breached, that you've already been there. Somebody has keys to the kingdom, and they're going to go and do bad stuff for you guys, right? So a lot of times from there, it's always, okay, once I get into one door, how do I verify myself for more information or more doors, right? So there are times where you want to re-authenticate yourself, or you look at stuff like location, for example, and say, wait a minute, Andrew lives in, let's say, DC. I just logged in from like London, right? Maybe let me send him a authentication to let him do it one more time to make sure that it's really him. And then once he kind of verifies himself, password, MFA, combination of both, then I go, okay, you know what? I'm gonna give him more access from there. So, and I am, that's kind of like where that all meets together, right? Is that, okay, I'm gonna verify you, multiple ways to do it, assuming that you are who you are. But if I don't trust you, I'm gonna make sure I trust you by verifying yourself, information that you give to allow you to give me more doors to like authorization. So basically, and if you can't answer them, you can only limit your damage to like a certain spot rather than everything else, which is what SSO does today for a lot of companies. Is once I'm in, depending on who you are, it's like keys to the kingdom. I'm gonna go to town and just destroy stuff.
Yeah, and I had it up here just a little bit ago. I'll put it up
Mhm.
again. So Alpha Cybersecurity said, assume breach, never trust, always verify.
Always, yes,
And that's
yes.
one of the things. As much as I love SSO, and for organizations, it is amazing, except for the fact that you're right. It's kind of like building the moat, and then all the doors to the castle are open because whatever they have access to, you now have access to. Whatever that account has access to, you now have access to. And so it's one key. So you breach one account, and you have access to everything they do, every application, every cloud infrastructure, everything's there. So it is very much, when it comes to zero trust, you always have to authenticate. And so I don't like, just even to this day, I don't like using Google or Facebook or whatever to be like, oh yeah, use this to authenticate, because then I can just use one account and authenticate to everything. I like having separate email accounts and separate logins and separate passwords. And yeah, when I was younger, don't get me wrong, I've had Google and LastPass yell at me for, hey, you have used the same password on multiple accounts. And that's only because I didn't change it in Google anymore. I quit using Google to store passwords because I got smart eventually. And so I started changing all my passwords. Now they're all different, but it's still one of those things where you look at it and as you're growing up and into it, you're like, man, I'm just going to use the same password. Let me use Google for everything. And then the big kicker came here when we talk about MFA. So if you have MFA to a personal email, and that personal email has now been compromised because password reuse or whatever the case, and this is the problem with MFA when you're not using a hardware token, if you're using SMS or email or something like that, you compromise that, you now compromise the MFA. Whereas, oh, I got you. Hold on, I just got to fix mine right here. Right there.
Oh,
I got you.
Nice.
So when you use MFA, if you're using a hardware token, you have to physically get the token. You can't just do a SIM swap or, hack an email account. So, or even, phones now, instead of doing SMS, it'll actually say, is the application on your phone? Is it your phone? Or you're logged in already? All this other stuff. So even that is I'm still not a huge fan of using the phones as an MFA of any type, but it's still a better than a text message or an email. So when you're I've seen this already. I've helped people get their accounts back that have been like, oh, I had 2FA. Well, what'd you have? Oh, my email. And you had the same password on your email that you had on your Facebook, that you had on your Instagram, that you had on everything else. So now that 2FA doesn't matter. It's a moot point because I have access to everything you use. So when it comes to things like that, it's crazy.
Right. I mean, I agree. It's like I did a video on this too, right? On the different types of MFA you can have. So obviously, worst comes to worst.
Both. I did one a while ago. I don't even remember where it was. I did one.
Yeah.
I think I did a TikTok video on it too. So
I don't do TikTok. But so yeah, email, SMS. I mean, you said it, SIM hacking. I did it, SIM swapping. I talk about it too, right? There's push notification, which you have to physically do something and touch. That's something. Yeah, the software authenticator is nice too to have. Don't get me wrong, like your Authies, your Obsidians, your even your LastPass Duo, they all have it too, right? Which is nice, but hardware tokens are nice too, except if you lose it, which sucks, right?
Oh, I broke one. That really sucks when you have it hanging off your computer down here and accidentally step on it, and then the USB breaks and now you no longer have access.
Right. So for us, right? So right, exactly. So when I go to an organization and I talk about that with them, right? These are things we have to talk about. And Eric brought this up a long time ago. I think when he was on a show with Studio Stack was about how do I communicate that, right? A lot of stuff for us and IAM too that I think people miss out, which goes back to your original thing about being, if you need to be technical. Honestly, for a lot of the IAM stuff, it's me going, how do I communicate this to people, right? And non-techies to say, hey, here's what I'm trying to do. How do I register? Even your phone, right? How do I register Authy using a QR code? Well, it's a QR code, right? And helping them understand the value of it, even upper management, right? Understanding that, hey, I want you to spend $5,000 to get physical tokens to everybody in your enterprise, you know, and then let's have a campaign to teach them how to use it. And then hopefully they don't lose it. You will have to assume they lose it. So you have some spare in there. It's costly, but again, it's all about mitigating risk, right? How do I mitigate the risk that, you know, doesn't put me on, I use it all the time, a lot of my videos is that I'm not on top of the Washington Post saying that I got hacked, right? T-Mobile, Colonial Pipeline, always one where it's bad for the company, but if you're public, bad for your stakeholders, your shareholders, which cost you millions and millions of dollars, right? So spending a little bit more money to do that, to lower your risk, is worth it than you getting public shamed, losing, you know, shareholder money, and eventually cost you millions versus maybe a couple thousand, right? In terms of like throwing things out.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it comes down to, you know, when we look at this and you're looking at the education behind it, and we so frequently want to look at it as an expense, as, you know, it's an expense to train, it's an expense to do things, it's an expense for whatever. Cybersecurity is an expense. But when you look at it, it's an investment. It's an investment into your future. Because without it, if you don't invest in it, then your future's gone, because your company is going to be gone. So everything you've built, everything you've wanted to grow, everything you've tried to expand, everything you've tried to do becomes nothing, because you're breached. Your company publicly is destroyed. And, you know, yeah, when you have like the Targets and the Home Depots and, you know, Equifax and Experian and all these other companies that have been breached, they can withstand a little bit. But imagine if this stuff went on long term and they couldn't recover. They're gone.
Right, so let's talk about what you just said real quick, because you bring up a very interesting point, which is a lot of companies will not want to invest in security, and they want to do it the fastest, cheapest, you know, the way that it's going to do my compliance. Okay, I have IAM, I have this, but you know, they see that as an expense, right? And then they don't understand that when they get hacked and when they get a ransomware, you know, we're asking as a security professionals for $1 million to put a SailPoint implementation. Okay. On the other hand, they don't want to pay that $1 million, but they don't blink an eye when they get a ransomware that's $10 million. And then you have to say, look, you didn't want to pay $1 million, but now you got to pay, you're happy paying the 10 million to get back on. So it's the mindset of the CISO, mindset of the board, that you've got to present that in a business case and make it look like security is a business expense, just like any other insurance or anything else that they need to do their business. And that's starting to change.
Yeah, it is, for sure.
Yeah, no, Eric, you're spot on, right? A lot of times, like I have encountered that too. It's, yeah, you're right. It's when you go talk to these upper level, you know, it's almost like you gotta bring data, right? I always say also, you know, data doesn't lie unless you make it lie, right? It's very clear. So a lot of times, like Verizon does a amazing report every year, right? That talks about the ransomware, the costs, you know, across the agency. Bring that, right? Say, hey, look, you know, I understand that you want to save money or make quickest way, but let me show you some actual figures of studies of an independent company that does these and show you how much it costs for that. Is this worth it, right? Let me show you the cost value or a cost analysis of us putting a couple $100,000 on, let's say, you know, SailPoint, or everybody getting a physical token, right? And doing that campaign versus saying paying out ransomware, right? And the hope there is, you know, you kind of show them the light, right? Because again, money talks. Losing money sucks, right? So if you can kind of show that in a business case, saying here's the value add, and I say a lot of value, I think that's where it can help educate them. Say, you know what, I think you're right, and then even suggest stuff that I talked about this before too. Like, give me a pod group, right? Give me like a subset of like a department. Let me show you what I'm talking about, right? And then show them, rather than doing enterprise wide, take one subset of of people or department, say, let me show you how it works, right? And you say, here's currently what's happening, and then here's your new pod group, and then see the value there. And I think that's the methods I've used to help bigger companies or even small companies saying, you know what, maybe we should invest a little bit more money in IAM, cybersecurity, physical tokens. Maybe we'll use like a software authenticator versus using our email or SMS for that. Or maybe we don't allow bring your own devices, and we kind of be more rigid for contractors, right? To say, you know what, either you use our stuff or you don't. You know what I mean? Like that. So going back again to communication is, how do I don't want to say it's selling to them, but it's more like, how do I communicate that and show the value to them that this is worth their time, worth their
I'm not
money.
using the word convince.
Yeah, and convince. Yeah, exactly. Bring them
Yeah,
disaster.
I look at it as how do I want to put this? I think that for on that, like, cyber insurance has played a big role. I do not like cyber insurance. I don't, because I think you're negating the issue, right? So you're saying, okay, pay us $20 a month. Now we all know you're going to get breached. Every company out there, people are going to hate me for this. I don't care though. Every company out there, there's only two types. There's you already know you're breached and you're recovering from it, or you've been breached and don't know about it. That's the way I see it. So I look at it as cyber insurance kind of takes that away and is like, you know what? Even if you're breached, pay us $20 a month. We'll give you $500,000. It'll be okay. I'm not a fan of that because of how it goes. What's up, Eric?
That is changing as well. Okay. So in the last, say, about 3 years now, the cyber insurance companies has gotten wise. Okay. Just like when somebody puts a thing on your house or you do your insurance claim on your car and they check to see that you're not defrauding them.
Right.
But now cyber insurance companies are looking at it and saying, we're not going to pay if we don't see that you've protected yourself enough. And I'll give you a perfect example with Capital Pipeline. They didn't get the full insurance because they didn't have some of the cybersecurity things in place. So it's getting a little bit better where people are saying, yes, it's going to cover some things. I'll give you another example. Some of the cyber insurance out there will pay for the ransomware, but not the recovery. So they will pay for the money to get your stuff back or to get the keys, but then it's on you to implement the changes, to do all that stuff. So cyber insurance is now getting to the point where it's not the be all end all.
Which is good, and I think that's a positive step forward, because too many companies, I think, were relying on that, where they
Yes.
would do the bare minimum and be like, "Oh, I got cyber insurance. I don't got to invest in more people. I don't got to invest in training or anything like that." Or their way to invest in training was, "I'm gonna get this CBT for cyber awareness, and I really don't care who does it. We're just gonna throw it out there." And look, don't get me wrong. A lot of good companies out there, KnowBe4 and things like that, do good training. I've just never been a big fan of CBTs. Never. You click through, you get to the end, you take the test. You don't pay attention to actually what's in front of you. I dealt with it for years in the Army and in the Air Force. You know, like you just click. All right, I'm done. I know the answers. I don't fucking care. I'm gonna do what I want anyways. So, I think you see that a lot, but companies see like things like cyber awareness training as, oh, well, if they have to do it or do it in person, it takes away from their time to make me money. So I don't want to do that. So, I'm losing money at the same time I'm spending money, and it's just a big hassle. But the reality of it is, to me, I still see that as an investment. If someone's willing to come to you and train your people on IAM, on, accessing machines and doing cyber awareness right, and not sharing, reusing passwords, and not, opening the wrong emails, and show you the why and the how you can find these, not just don't click links. Don't insert a USB drive that's not yours. Things like that. If you tell someone no, it's like a teenager or a kid. You tell them no, what are they going to do? they're going to go do it because you told them not to do it. So they're going to go do it anyways. It's human nature.
Cybersecurity awareness training, I'll say it, I'll be controversial, whatever. It doesn't work. Okay, it doesn't work. People spend an hour, they do their training. That's a compliance thing. I won't get my access cut. I did that. Then what are you going to do for the other 11 months of the year?
Not a goddamn thing.
Bingo.
Yep.
So training people and explaining it through the year is more beneficial because you keep that mindset in there. Security awareness is a daily event.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that can go out for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I agree with both of you in terms of cybersecurity awareness training, right? It's just, again, I mean, I've taken it and I'm like, whatever. Like, even some of them are like, hey, you can, if you test out, you don't have to do it, right? Or something like that too, which is, and a lot of them are, honestly, some of them are already outdated. I look at it, I start laughing at them. I'm like, wait a minute, this is old. What are you doing, right? Don't cheap it out. So that's also been a struggle that I've seen from cybersecurity awareness training. Because again, people, us, we're the ones, like, we're the vulnerable ones. We're the ones that always give people access. Oh, look, USB port. Let's take it in there. I'll help breaks loose.
So let me ask you a question, because you came into this, you worked in finance for a while before you got into IAM. And did you find, because I have a problem with degrees. I have one. Eric has one. A lot of people have them. And we've given a lot of we've put degrees on a pedestal, so much so now a bachelor's degree is basically down here and a master's degree is here, and then your PhDs are like up here. So like a bachelor's means little to nothing anymore because everybody and their brother has one, and sister and aunt and uncle. So, but when you look at it, I look at degrees in such a way that in certain career fields, it's outdated knowledge. It's stuff that's no longer used. Would you feel that would be the same way today? Like, if does finance change much over the years that degree would still, that you got your BA? So, would that degree still serve you today because the knowledge is the same? Whereas maybe cybersecurity, which changes, teaches 4-year-old data information. I think a cybersecurity degree is worthless, but would a financial degree to this day still be worth it?
So, so to be clear, I don't have a finance degree. I have a business administration degree, and I'm for me personally, your question, for those of you who don't know, or have seen the movie, I was on the Van Wilder program, which it took me forever to get my degree. So I honestly, to get my degree,
best program there is.
That's right. I went to school in 98, 2002. I was supposed to walk. I took a couple courses. I was supposed to take that in the summer. I got lazy. I was young. I was stupid, and I went to work.
Join the party, man. I graduated with 367.
Yeah, and I went to work, right, doing government contracting, right. So, I came in as a tester. I didn't need a degree for that, right. I had to learn how to really test a product, right. And the product that I was testing happened to be a financial software for the government. So I don't have a finance background, so trying to be clear, but and the hard part is, honestly, for years, years, I didn't have my degree at all, right? From my mid-20s all the way till I am 41 now, right? So I didn't get my degree till I was like 39, 40. That's all it took me. And I still got jobs. The only thing the degree stopped me from was getting more money, right, for positions, which sucked, right? Because a lot of government contractors, contracting companies, or the contract it is, requires a degree. And I'm like, for what? I know just as much as this guy here for learning everything on the job, everything. Why should I be, hindered for a degree? It doesn't make sense to me. I personally am the same boat. I don't think a degree is worth it in terms of cybersecurity. But the sad part of it is most companies, that's the first thing they look for, which sucks because, I'd rather hire someone who doesn't have a degree but has the experience versus someone who does have a degree and don't have the experience.
So what I've learned in my career is this: the degree opens a door. Okay, that's it. For the jobs, they say you require a bachelor's degree, or now, because of the environment we find ourselves, it's bachelor's degree or experience. So what you're seeing is somebody with 4 years experience equals a bachelor's degree, 8 years for a master, and 12 years for a PhD level. And that's why they're trying to bridge the gap. One of the things that we're doing with Raices is there's 3 ways in general. I'm going to generalize. There's 3 ways to enter the field of cybersecurity. Either a degree program, a person that does a lot of certifications and gets that experience, and then people who are transition from a technical area like a system administration or or a BA or a PMP or something and move over. Okay. In my career, so here's something that you guys don't know. I got 97 credits. I don't have my degree.
Nice.
Okay. I've been in the industry for 32 years. The only companies that I've failed to get a job were KPMG, Booz Allen, and Anderson.
Which is
Other
now
than that,
EY.
I have been in almost every company: Boeing, a Lockheed, well, actually, I ended up in Booz Allen, um, and all these other government contractors. And the challenge is getting through that first step. Once you are in, nobody cares about what degree you have. I don't I don't think I've ever been in an organization where somebody says, "I've got a degree from this company or this university or that university." Nobody cares.
No.
It's what you know.
Yeah. And one of the things I've seen, the only time I've seen a degree matter in my job hunt, and this goes when I was still in the guard looking for a full time job, all the way up to now. Department of Energy had a requirement that you had to have a 3.6 GPA. So not only did you have to have a degree, you had to have like a 3.6 or 3.7 GPA for them to even look at you.
Mhm.
I'm like, why? Why does that matter? Why does your GPA matter? A degree is a degree is a degree. Your GPA shouldn't matter. And on top of that, why is a degree required? And when I talked to the guy that was doing the hiring, he was like, I mean, this is required, but if you have a CCIE, I'll hire you for 6 figures right now. And this was back early, this was probably 2008. And I'm like, again, I'm, you know, 19, 20. I don't even know how old I was then, but still, like, it's one of those things like, what's it
So
matter?
Miss W just posted something there. Okay. And I'm going to challenge you. And you know I love you because you come every week to our shows. One of the things that we're working on with some universities right now is that cybersecurity degrees in some organizations are becoming almost as general degrees. You come out of those degrees with a wide amount of knowledge, but no specific knowledge on the field.
Mile wide, inch
And
deep.
yeah, and one of the things that we're doing with Raices as well, and working with a couple of universities, a couple big universities, is having a program that sits on top of these cybersecurity programs to give them the information that they need so that they are ready to enter the field once they get their cybersecurity degree. So while they're really good, but you end up with saying, I don't even know. I mean, so I've met with fourth year candidates of these programs, and when I tell them how many different fields in cybersecurity there are, they can't answer that question. They can't tell me that in blue team there's like 10 different fields. In red team there's like 7 different fields. They don't know about IAM, they don't know about GRC. They might know about the topics, but they don't know where they want to go in the field. So
Right.
cybersecurity degrees are great. They get you in there, they get you the basic knowledge, but they need to be tweaked here in the next couple years.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what also missed up you said about like experience and skills, right? Is today so I mentor people in my job too. I love a lot. We have some huge campus hires in my job today, so I take a couple under my wing to kind of help them out. And right now he's struggling because I'm telling him, hey, here's what BAs do, right? Here's what SailPoint does. Go and learn it, and it's great. But then he comes to me, he's like, I don't apply it, which I think that to me is where I'm like, I need you to go talk to people, start applying it. Go be a junior BA somewhere and ask the questions for like requirements, for example, right? Or how do I test this out? Or how do I put everything that I've learned, on exact like use case, right? I think that's what's lacking too in terms of school. Like when I went to school, and I went for a CIS degree before I finishing just for a BS in management because I just want to get the degree, make my mom happy. By the way, that's the only reason why I have a degree. My mom's happy because that's all that matters to me.
Same here.
My mom,
Don't worry.
my mom had a huge little hole in her spot for years. I'm like, mom, and being from an Asian family, it was hard for my mom. So
Mom
I'm
wasn't
saying,
happy with you.
oh no, mom was pissed. So I was like, man, I spent 20 G's every year for you to go to school. You don't have a degree. What's going on? So here you go, mom. But I think that's where I think Eric, which I love your organization I'm trying to do, and then the mentoring part of it too is how do we apply it, right? When I learn all these cool concepts like hey, governance, let's talk about least privilege. What does that mean? Let's apply it somewhere, right? So when the kids get out of school, or even like I'm trying to help mentor other people outside of my work to help them get jobs in I challenge them all the time. Hey, go learn what role-based access control is, right? RBAC, use your job as an example when you see, because you have the job, the institutional knowledge. When you go talk to companies, when you, let's say, apply and you talk in interviews, how would you apply that? How would you implement role-based access control for your job that you're seeing as a problem there today? And that's what I'm trying to help people with IAM. Going back to, to what you're saying about no technical experience is explain the concepts of IAM and how would you apply it, right? I think that's where people need to figure out is how do I apply it? What's the right use case for it, right? A real world example use case. I think that's where if I'm a hiring manager, I'm like, okay, cool. You might be raw in terms of experience or years of working, but you understand the concepts, right? I can work with that, right? I think that's what helps too.
What's Kerberos?
What is Kerberos? Oh, you mean the Windows ticking system where they go and they grant tickets? Yeah.
So here's my question though, because for Blue Team, we discussed last week a lot of the trainings that are out there and the ability to get training for Blue Team. Red Team, we already know all the different trainings and things like that. Your channel is specifically IAM, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the goal of my channel is very simple, right? I'm teaching you IAM basics first, and then I'm going to branch out into helping you with your career, right? Everything that you're learning in my channel, what are some resources? Because I think a lot of people what are some resources? Guess what? There's tons of free resources for IAM, right? You don't have to pay for no boot camp.
So
you got to go
send
buy
me your
anything from there.
channel. Put it in the chat or private chat or whatever. I'll post it up on here so people can follow your channel.
Yeah.
Because I think that's important because when we're looking at experience and training and things of that nature, IAM has a lot of different software involved, right? SailPoint you mentioned, and there's more than just SailPoint. There's a lot of others.
Mm-hmm.
So having someone get that knowledge is very important because then they can actually speak to it. And I think that's part of the problem is, I know what, the difference between, how to do MFA and things of that nature. But if they don't understand all the concepts behind it, then they can't speak to it all. So when they go to apply for a job, it's just, oh, I Googled this, I got an answer. Okay, this is the answer to this. But they may not really truly understand. So having that link and being able to give someone the resources to understand is would go a long way because it's not something that I have ever seen in a college. The IAM
side. There is none. No. So I live close to Mason, right? George Mason University. I know Eric knows that well because he lived in Virginia for years. Very good school, right? I was telling my company this too. I looked at their program, their cybersecurity program, and nothing nothing identity, database administration, network administration, all these things too, but I always ask this question a lot of times, all those different courses, which is good. Don't be wrong. It's good. What do you use to, to access those? Mostly some identity, right? Most likely. So, again, like I would, one of my things, I think one of my goals back to my channel is teaching people that, hey, guess what? Here's some things about IAM. Here's what touches in terms of cybersecurity, in terms of like, oh, if you're more like a hacker, right? What are some things as a IAM person I need to think about, right? Or how can I help? Because it could be a jump spring into being more a hacker, because you understand how from an IAM world how that works, the concepts, right? I think that's where schools lack, and even some education on that is key. That most people don't get today in terms of IAM, like privileges, right? How do I handle least privilege? How do I handle privilege for admins? Admins are different from like end users like me. If I go into my work and I log in, I'm treated differently than somebody who has access to a server that can take down everything in my company, right? Like that.
Let's
So
be honest on that, though. Let's be honest on that. Go ahead, Eric.
Yep.
I was going to do something here for Andrew. I'm going to type in the chat here 3 letters that people don't know that are part of identity and access management.
Oh yeah, what 3 letters?
It?
I don't see anything.
There
it is.
That's right. Privilege access management, everybody. It's totally different. There's so many rules behind that. And again, yes, absolutely 100% spot on. So it's not just authorization too. It's concepts, right? It's frameworks. You handle end users and government, I'm sorry, not government. So regular employees, contractors, way differently than you handle your privileged people who have access to servers, databases, people who can take things down, people who can take down oil rigs for weeks and make me pay $4 or $5 or long lines for gas, for example, right? Because you have a reused admin password that doesn't get rotated every 30 days. Exactly. Spot on, Eric, in terms of PAM.
But even then, you look at it and you talked about it, right? An admin will have different access than you do.
Mm-hmm.
But again, privilege access management, or you look at identity roles and things like that when you're looking at cloud and things of that nature, and PIM and all that stuff, and privilege identity management, I think it is. I look at this and it really comes down to, so where I don't agree with everything Microsoft does, I do agree with the UAC, because it did something that they've never done, where Linux has always had, you have to use sudo to do certain things. You had to be root or have some type of root privileges to do certain things. Windows never did. If you were an admin, you were an admin, you were an admin. You logged in, that's what you had. So when they implemented the UAC and the ability to segregate those privileges, it was an important step in security for them. So I do think that in companies today, you should have 2 different accounts if you're an admin. Your admin account, which has no email address attached to it, no access to anything other than what you need to do administrative, your administrative duties. And then you have a standard user account. Mm-hmm. And that standard user account is what you use for email and internet and whatever else. And I think still some companies are lacking on that, where they're like, okay, you're an admin, so you can do whatever an admin does. So if you breach a sysadmin's account, you have everything, whether through phishing or whaling or whatever the case may be. Right. You have everything. So being able to have different accounts for different things, where certain accounts don't have email, they don't have access to internet. And that was one of the things in one of my old jobs, we did, is you had an admin login that literally you had no email account to it. You had no internet access. You had access to the drives you needed to pull what you need, but you didn't have access to anything else, because of the fact of those risks of if I log in with this account, now all of a sudden you have the keys to the kingdom. Whereas when they locked it down the way they did, you can install shit, but you can't do anything else now. Like that.
Right.
That's what your admin account does. You can install shit, but you can't do nothing.
That's right. I mean, and PAM can take it a step further too. Some softwares out there will require you to check out a password, right, to access something, right? And I think that's where I've been talking to people too. Or for example, like CyberWarrior, for example, right?
Does that.
Iconic does too, right?
And there you go.
They all do it, right? And even some take it further. Was like, you know what? I'm gonna have you log in through my own VPN tunnel. Well, you have to log in there through. So CyberArk has it's called a PBWA, right? It's their personal vault right there. You log in through there, and then I'm going to track everything that you do. You have to go through that channel using the using the password that I checked out for you. That's not the real password. That's just a temporary password. You log in through that VPN tunnel. everything you do, I'm monitoring you. Keystrokes, auditing, right? And that goes back to what Eric's saying for GRC, right? Is IAM is that too, is all the auditing stuff, right? I'm going to track everything that you do and verify it. And then when you log out, that key's done, right? Next person, check it out like that. So going back to, Pam, that's how it's separating. And like you said, exactly. I've talked to customers where I'm like, hey guys, let's separate accounts here, right? In Active Directory, you'll get a like -A account or -R or whatever, or something stupid, right? Not too obvious. But even if they do have access to the -A, you can't do anything until you log into like CyberArk or whatever to pull the information. You just get a cool account like, oh, I can't do anything, right? And I think that's where the least privilege comes through is you, again, keep them in a small room and go kick doors down or whatever, but you can't
And
get
again, this is
anywhere.
where IAM really plays a big role because it is about managing what access people have to certain things. And it is one of the things that the place that I work for did right was that if you had an admin account, you had access to nothing but admin functions.
Mm-hmm.
So installing programs, remote administering a server, whatever the case may be. But you didn't have access to internet, email, the other nonsense. So it was one of those things where you look at it, and I look at how identity and access management is done now, and as a consultant, I'm like, look, if you're going to do a bastion host and you want only your admins to be able to remote into that bastion host, they're the only ones that should be allowed. You should not have users. Users have no need to do that. They have no reason to log into one of those. But at the same time, they're allowed to log in, but why would they need access to the internet? It's a bastion host. What the fuck do they need the internet for? Why do they need access to email? Again, bastion host, not necessary. So not only do you not allow them to access those things, you don't even install those programs. You don't give them Microsoft Office on those computers. You don't give them certain things. So there's so much that can go into it that, again, part of that access management part of it, right? You're logging into a certain computer. You should not have any programs that can do daily tasks.
Right.
Because why do you need something that for administrative purposes? Why do you need to access email?
Right. I mean, and Brad's spot on one of his comments. He says, audit log back to IAM. If IAM is terrible, your thing is shit. Spot on. Right. A lot of my companies today that I work, that I come as a consultant for, they ask a lot of questions is more or less, hey, how do I audit stuff? SOX is on my ass all the time about, how do I compliance? Our old system sucked ass. Like, how do I make it better? Right. Oh, cool. Well, this is how we're going to verify that. How do I access the logs? All these different conversations or questions, definitely because SOX cares. And IAM being in that too is you have to talk to other departments too to make sure they're all jiving together, right? So legal, for example, you have audit or SOX compliance, you have service desk too, and make sure that the access that each of those groups needs is enough for what they can do, and then do the job, and that's it, right? So,
Yep.
and then again, logging everything, putting it in a location, file share, file server, whatever, or even some people use like Splunk, for example, right? Oh, can I aggregate down to Splunk? Yeah, to get a nice dashboard to give CISOs or whoever a better idea of what's going on from an audit perspective.
For sure.
IAM is all about that. You know what I mean? From there. So that's, as Eric said, and you said, just the vast like arena of IAM. There's so many different facets that you guys can be a part of to do all that stuff. Eric, you're on mute, sir.
And I'm back. Training for this field is what I was saying. Is you have the basics of it. It starts with your user list, with your password list, and there's different technologies to store that in the background. And then it's how do you access that user list and the password list and the authentication. And then you move to the different technologies, of how to do that, how to grant access, and then how to authorize to the levels. And then you move up to the tools. You've got your SailPoints, you've got your Microsoft Identity Managers, you've got your Oracle Identity Manager, your Savians, you've got different ways of attacking this. And then not only that, but how do you keep, and this is the most important part, is how do you keep those users up to date? So somebody quits in your company or somebody gets fired. What's the first thing you do? Or you have to take out the access of that person.
Mhm.
And that person might have had an account here, an account here, an account here, an account here. So can you talk to us a little bit about how, when somebody gets removed from a company, what is the most important part that IAM does?
So governance, exactly what Eric says, governance, right, is how do we handle a user lifecycle, right? And that's exactly what it is. So when I'm onboarding somebody, if you're brand new to the company, what can I give you day one, right? I talked about RBAC. Eric brought up to you about RBAC, role-based access control. There's ABAC, which is attribute-based access control, where I grant you, let's say, birthright rules, right? Things you need from day one, which a lot of organizations, it's a conversation of what can I do day one? Because companies want you to work the day you start, right? And a lot of times, most companies today, it's like, oh, I have to go to ServiceNow, request access, which takes forever. But even if I request access, right, do I need approvals, right? That's another part of governance is, oh, maybe it's my manager that does approval. Oh, are you requesting a more senior or more privilege or that gives you more risk or more rights? Maybe I throw in an application order to make another additional approval there, right? So that's your onboarding process. What if I transfer? What if I switch positions to, let's say, a different department? Should I keep my current rights to my old job or my old department? No, not really, right? You should remove that. And then after that, you would then give the new ones to your company too, right? So again, you're removing that because a lot of times, and I've seen this, right? People who've been jobs for years and they have built up all this access. I'm like, do you even use that anymore? No. They never take it away from you? No. That's part of governance. And then the last part, what Eric talked about, is leaver or terminations, right? Most time you work with your SOX compliance to say, okay, what's your standard? What's your rule? So when I leave an organization, I'm terminated, right? There's scheduled termination. I hate my 2 weeks. I'm leaving for a company, or I get fired, right? I did something stupid. I did something. I went to like YouTube. I watched all YouTube for hours. I got caught, whatever, right? And I walked out the door. What's the process there? Automatic? Do I disable my account automatically? Do I move them to a different OU? Disable OU? Do I automatically kill their account there? Do I notify people? Let them know that this happened, right? Is there approvals that need to happen if I get terminated, right? All these things are all part of that governance process of a user lifecycle that can be for employees, contractors. Yes, sir.
You get caught watching YouTube. What you say is, I was watching CyberWarriorStudios so that I could get more information about my job.
Right. I'm learning cybersecurity, man. Exactly.
There you go.
Exactly.
I'm in my learning.
Exactly.
So it's huge though, because if you look at it, that is one of the things that we've considered, as a consultant, you have to consider those things, right? When you're working on a blue team, is what is your vulnerability management? What is your passwords? All these different things. And one of those is, especially in the GRC side of things, is your user access management. And when you look at that, some people will want to retain emails and retain this information. You can do that. Like you said, OUs are a great resource. You can't log in, you can't do anything, but I want to retain your data. And that's very important. So until you can migrate that data to another location, you retain it by putting that OU in an account that can't log into anything.
Mm-hmm.
But it still exists, it just can't be used.
Right.
So I think that's very important.
Even retention period, right? You said the same thing too. I'm sorry, I didn't cut you off. I apologize.
Oh, you're good, man.
Retention period, same thing. I am, right? Hey, how long do you guys keep user accounts, disable accounts? 7 years, 8 years, whatever, right? What's your compliance there, right? There's all these parts of the questions that I'm asking is, right, is how do I do that? What's the retention policy? Do I reuse usernames? Do I not reuse usernames? What about passwords? Like, these are all questions of IAM that you asked to do to keep things simple, right? Or to make sure, like, what am I lowering or mitigating the risk from? So great point on that one.
So, real quick, I got another question here from Gromit. What is your thoughts on password fatigue?
So obviously it sucks, right? Because you hate putting in passwords at the same time all damn time, right? Again, we talk about SSO is one way that people do it, right? Which I know we hate, but it's common across the board. If allowable, a password manager is nice to have. If that's something your company allows, right? So again, it depends on what your organization allows you to. Personally, I use a password manager for a lot of things I do because I don't want to reuse passwords. and I store it there, right, for me. And then a lot of times, again, it's does my organization have like SSO, or like, for example, if you're a government contractor, do you have a PIV card or a CAC card, right? And use that to log in.
Did you
or
just say CAC card?
Yeah, CAC card. Yeah.
Common access card. You don't say card
Yes.
twice. It's a CAC.
Exactly. But other ways to authenticate yourself, right? The government's getting better about that, right? You stick it in, and then you may put like a PIN number, right, rather than a password. So hopefully that will make it easier for you, because again, like the question here, when you make people put in passwords all damn time, they use the same passwords all the time. Put a damn sticky note on the bottom of their monitor, and then that's how people get hacked too, is from there.
I love that. I love the Raíces mug.
That's right.
So
Raíces.
before we do this drawing, which we only got 6 entries, if you want 1 month try hack me, do it right now. Hashtag IAM. That's why it's been down there the whole stream. Hashtag IAM.
Let's go, people. Let's put.
So I got 6 entries.
IAM.
But I do have here something. Every place KevTech IT support requires approval to install software. If you keep approval, we would package it. Everything gets packaged, no one allowed for a single one-time install.
Yep.
And I like that, because it makes the company responsible for how that software is installed. They'll push it out.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen other instances of that, where you use certain software to be like, all right, you need this software. I'm going to push it to you to install right now. And then if it requires a reboot, it'll tell you to reboot your computer so that it can finish the install, because Lord knows it's Microsoft. So, of course, it probably requires a reboot. But it's still, I'm going to push it. No one else is. No one else is going to be allowed to install anything, only the admins. And it requires approval. And we see a lot of this approval process with Azure now, where how you were talking about, onboarding and things of that nature. Azure and what they do have enabled that capability, or at least from some of the things I've seen, where I'll give you certain roles that I have to, that your manager or director or whomever has to approve. And then you can get access to certain resources. And then if you need access to more, you request this other role. And that role doesn't get approved, or those permissions don't get approved right away. You have to get approval from your manager or whatever the workflow is.
Mm-hmm.
So you're seeing that more and more, but are companies utilizing it is the big key factor there, where these features are being put in play. And we do give a lot of heat to Microsoft. I'm one of them. I give a lot of heat to Microsoft, even though I love their products because of the usability of them for non-technical people. They're so commonplace. That's why they get breached the most. That's why they're the most commonly hit. It's not because they're the weakest. Let's be honest. If Linux was the most popular distro out there and the most popular operating system, it would be hit more ways than it is now. But the reality of it is, Microsoft has the market and companies and organizations. So that's what people are going to target. So with that being the case, I think there's a lot of security features that companies are missing out on simply for ease of use. I want my employees to be able to just work and not have to worry about anything. Whereas if you put some restrictions on them, yeah, it's an inconvenience for 5 seconds, but at the end of the day, it makes you more secure.
All right, folks, let's do this drawing as we hit the 8 o'clock hour.
Oh, do we? Oh, crap. Hey, Eric, don't let me don't let me share everything. I had to cut blur a bunch of video last time. Yeah, okay. That'll work.
Is there a sound effect like brrrr,
No,
or something like that?
I don't have that.
We do that. So
All right, ready and draw. Who won?
Me.
Rain won.
Hey, all right.
I know, Rain. I'll hit him up. I'll give him the code. Yay, Rain.
Yay, Hercules.
The Rain got 1 month try hack me. So he racked out early. He didn't make it the whole stream, but I do know him, so he'll still get it. I know him personally, a good buddy of mine. But no, look, hey, I do want to say this: if you're on the audio podcast, because this is audio only as well, look, you miss out if you don't catch it on YouTube. But at the same time, I still appreciate you, still love you. So understand that even if you listen to this later, watch this later, even on YouTube or Twitch, I do love you. You're amazing. Thank you for tuning in. Other than that, Andrew, one last time, do us a favor. What is your YouTube channel?
Sure. My YouTube channel is All Things I Am.
Oh, so it's the other Twitter handle you have. Okay.
Yeah, I have two. Yeah, I separated, but I talk more on my personal. But yeah, it's fine. Trust me, you can bang me there. I just use it just to push out any new content.
All good, all good. I'll put that in the description down below here in a little bit. But yeah, I do appreciate what you do because a lot of people don't realize, and Eric, I love Dancing Granny. I do. But a lot of people don't realize how important it is to have IAM, GRC, and all the other components of cybersecurity that we have. And we have to work together. We have to be a team, and we have to collaborate. And I think that's really, really missing in our industry. Is we all want to think we're better. If I can, write my own exploit, I'm better than the person that secures a system. If I can catch you when you write your own exploit, I'm better than every other pen tester and red teamer out there. But at the end of the day, you've got GRC, IAM, all your different blue team roles, all your different red team roles. They're all out there. So please take a look at All Things IAM. Let me enunciate. All Things IAM, all one word, on YouTube. Check out Andrew's channel. Go ahead, subscribe, like, comment, all his videos, share them. Please give him the recognition that he deserves. And here in the future, look, I do have, I don't know if y'all noticed, I've been wearing my own swag. I do it all the time. CyberWarriorStudios.com has everything you need to support us and buy stuff. RaícesCyber.org. We do have a mini conference coming up here in December. Make sure you go ahead to RaícesCyber.org to check it out. Go ahead. It's on Eventbrite. Is where you'll get your tickets. So get in on the mini con. Go ahead and buy any merchandise that they have. And Eric's is going to tie into.
We will be doing a very big announcement. So make sure you follow us on Twitter at RaícesCyber.org, @RaícesCyber.org, and also on LinkedIn, Raíces Look at that because we have a huge announcement about the keynote speaker for this year. So just got off the phone with that. So stay tuned.
And that'll be awesome. So look, thank you everybody who has tuned in live. I love you all. Everybody watching after the fact or listening on podcasts, I love you too. Thank you for supporting us. I do want to give a shout out to Mary Liz Cuba, Miss W, Shiny Buttons, William Bailey, who's been on the stream, and he has a episode that he was on earlier. KevTech IT support, I got to get you on one day. Shanna B, she was on a previous episode, and so many others. Alpha Cybersecurity has been another great one. I had DJax Alpha, Davin Jackson on earlier. He was on an episode with Shannon Morris also. So if you didn't catch any of my earlier episodes, he was on with her. Shannon Morris, shout out to her at Snubs. Go ahead and follow her also. Other than that, look, I love you. Like, comment, subscribe, all those fun things. Hit that bell down below so you can get notified anytime I go live or post a video. Other than that, be safe. Have a great weekend, and I will see you all next time.